Happy International Women and Girls in Science Day. We thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is going to be recorded, so we'd ask that everyone who's keep their microphone muted during the panel discussion, and we'll have a time for more interactive discussions and conversation and questions during our breakout sessions following the panel. So before we get started, I wanted to share some of the exciting events and opportunities we have coming up at the Skandalaris Center. On February 17th, we'll be hosting our first virtual idea bounce of the spring semester. We invite you all to join us to pitch your ideas, get feedback, and make connections with people in the Skandalaris and the St. Louis entrepreneurial community. On February 18th, we will be hosting our I-Core Ignite program. This is a wonderful opportunity for all entrepreneurs to learn how to launch a successful startup by applying the NSF I-Core method of identifying opportunities by simply speaking to potential customers. Anybody who attends will learn customer discovery and how to develop a value proposition that resonates with customers. And like I said, we invite you all to attend that wonderful event. And then on March 9th, another great opportunity is our virtual startup internship and career fair. This is a great opportunity for ventures looking to recruit and connect with WashU students and recent alumni to join us to find interns and full-time hires. So with all those being shared, it's time for our wonderful panel, and it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. So first we have Dr. Cheryl Watkins Moore. Dr. Moore is the director of BioSTL STEM Entrepreneurial Inclusion Initiative, where she is responsible for creating partnerships, processes, and programming that strengthens the St. Louis region's STEM entrepreneurial ecosystem. She's a serial entrepreneur and the co-founder and co-host of Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Dr. Moore has served as an adjunct professor at Northwestern University Law School, an entrepreneur in residence with BioGenerator, and a judge in several local and national business plan competitions. She's on the board of numerous local and national entrepreneurial and regional programs, including St. Louis Civic Pride Foundation, the BASA Foundation, the STEM Innovation Entrepreneurship at Harris-Stowe State University, and the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs St. Louis chapter, just to name a few. There are a lot more, so please check out her bio. And then Dr. Moore holds an MBA from Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management and a BA in Biology from Fisk University. Welcome, Dr. Moore. And we also have with us Dr. Christina de Guzman Strong, an assistant professor in the Division of Dermatology in the Department of Medicine at Washington University and St. Louis School of Medicine. She is a core faculty member in the Center for the Study of Itch and Sensory Disorders in the Center of Pharmacogenomics. Dr. Guzman Strong earned her PhD in human genetics at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and completed her postdoctoral training at the National Human Genome Research Institute. Her laboratory studies the genetics of skin barrier formation and translates this new knowledge towards understanding inflammatory skin diseases and human skin diversity with the support of NIH funding. Dr. de Guzman Strong currently serves as an associate editor for the Journal of Investigative Dermatology Innovations and a standing member for an NIH grant review study section. She is also active in the DBBS PhD admissions at WashU. She founded her company, Evely Skin, based on her recent discovery for human skin barrier evolution out of Africa. She's a recipient of the Skandalaris Center's LEAP Award and graduate of CET's SQ1 Entrepreneur Program. Evely Skin seeks to revolutionize the skincare market with the development of novel peptides designed specifically for persons of African ancestry. And our final amazing panelist rounding out this awesome panel is Margot Edwards. Margot is the director of Applied Research Laboratory at the University of Hawaii and a senior research scientist in the Hawaii Institute of Geophysics and Planetology at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She received her doctoral degree in marine geology and geophysics from Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory of Columbia University in 1992. She specializes in remote sensing of the seafloor using optical and acoustic systems. Her research focuses on processes involved in creating and modifying the seafloor, ocean, and oceanic crust. In 1999, she served as chief scientist of the Science Ice Exercise Program, becoming the first woman to sail on a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine during an operation. She served as the chair of the UNOLS Arctic Icebreaker Coordinating Committee from 2004 to 2007 and received a Distinguished Public Service Award from the Commandment of the U.S. Coast Guard. ADM Dad Allen for those efforts. From 2007 until the present, she has analyzed high-resolution photographic and acoustic data to assess military munitions that were disposed at sea south of Oahu, Hawaii. She currently leads the ARL in its mission to imagine and develop agile, innovative, and cost-effective solutions to problems impacting our stakeholders, community, and planet. So, with those wonderful bios and all of their experience, it's now my pleasure to welcome them and get started with our first question. So, I'd like to ask all of our panelists to speak to what motivated you to pursue a STEM career in STEM studies. So, we can start with Dr. Moore.
I knew you were going to do that.
Sorry, I went in order of the bios.
It's fine. That is fine. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity to participate with this outstanding panel today. We met earlier, and I am just like, these are not now my new friends, okay? But what actually motivated me early on, because I grew up in a two-parent household. My parents were not rich people; they were blue-collar workers. I grew up in Chicago. My mother was a kindergarten teacher, and my dad was a post office worker. But what they did believe was that education was a path to, not, success, but also parity when you talk about, achieving the ability to really thrive and survive in our society. So I was really impressed with actually my pediatrician. And she's the one that really got me into thinking about getting into medicine. Unlike, I am not a PhD, I'm a clinician, I'm a medical doctor. And she was just intriguing to me. She was an African-American, I should say Afro-Caribbean woman living in our neighborhood who was treating people who looked like me. She looked like me, and she was always very inspiring, always asking, not only, checking out my health as I was growing up, but always saying, well, what do you want to do? What are you thinking about doing? And medicine was something, I think for folks growing up, it was always, you could be a nurse or you could be something else. But she was the one that was like, no, you can go on to medical school and do, this is what you want to do. This is a choice and an opportunity for you. So she was my guiding light into this area of STEM. And I think since then, I have, my background is circuitous, as I tell people. I started in medicine, but I have since attained a business degree, stayed in the healthcare sector from a corporate standpoint, and leading a $100 million division at a major pharmaceutical company before coming into our startup community here in St. Louis and starting, I'm on my fourth startup right now. So I think STEM as a background can definitely leverage you into so many different opportunities and so many different careers. But that was my start.
Wonderful. And Dr. DeGuzman-Strong, would you be able to share a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. So I want to echo what Cheryl said, and thank you to Sydney and Mike and Skandalaris Center for inviting us here to speak today. We had a great talk earlier. And so, to answer the question of how I got involved in STEM, I guess as far back as my childhood can remember, I would say as a young kid, I was always curious and inquisitive to the point that I broke many toys because I wanted to figure out how it works. And so I got myself into trouble with that. But, it was sort of like a telltale sign that, every time I was in a science class, I just wanted to know more. And so I kind of ran with that, and, it led me through, I remember high school, my most vivid essay was writing about the central dogma of molecular biology. How do you get from DNA to RNA to protein? And then that carried me into college, where I was really involved in genetics. I really wanted to get in the lab as early as a sophomore. I just started washing dishes in a lab, and by the time I was a senior, you couldn't pull me out of the lab. And so then that took me to graduate school because I really wanted to pursue more research. And I found I took several years off in between college and grad school. So I recommend for those of you who are still trying to figure it out. And that's when I really learned that I miss science. I miss talking about science. I miss the knowledge of science. So I went and applied for grad school, and I got in, and I just started running with the idea of what does genetics do. And then from there, I went to do a postdoc at NHGRI and fell in love with skin biology. Because if you want to understand genotype phenotype correlations, why not study the skin, right? Because we can have access, to genetic variation, and very timely with the completion of the human genome. So I was fortunate enough to be at NHGRI, where I got that knowledge. I've got further inspiration from all these different places that I followed to get these opportunities. And as Cheryl said, it's a story that we do. We're always leveraging off opportunities. There's no one set path, and I hope that becomes clear to many of you that there's many different opportunities, and you will succeed in all of them if you go with your passion. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for sharing. And Margot, we'd love to hear what motivated you. You shared a little bit earlier. That was very fun.
And it wasn't a lie, so I'm going to say it again. But I'll start with aloha, because I actually am in Hawaii, and I'm happy to see everybody here. Thank you, mahalo, for having me participate in this. Yeah, so 2 words, Star Trek. I hate to sound like a nerd, but it's true. I grew up watching that show, and the idea of, seeking out new life and new civilization really struck with me. And then on top of that, you add in Jacques Cousteau, who is also a really popular figure when I was a kid, showing me all these amazing places around the world where, these animals that, we didn't know about before he got there and discovered them and invented scuba and all the wonderful things that he did. Those 2 people were really my inspiration. And so, in high school, I would say that high school was not particularly challenging or fulfilling to me in terms of science, but in terms of mathematics, it was. And my favorite teacher in high school was a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis. And she grabbed me and she said, you really got to go to this school. This is going to be a great school. And so, I got on the plane and I landed in St. Louis, and I always joke that this is a true story. I caught my skirt. I came dressed nicely, and I caught my skirt on the hook that closes the van door. And my first entrance to WashU, I landed on my butt. I didn't land on my feet. I landed on my butt at Washington University in St. Louis. But through that, I hooked up with sorry, that's the wrong term to use. I got into a laboratory working with Ray Arvidsson at the the Department of Earth and Earth Sciences. And he was an inspiration to me in terms of, what I wanted to do. He helped me. I came to him as a student who thought that she wanted to be an astronaut. He helped me become a better scientist. He got me on my path to my PhD. And even though I ended up becoming an aquanaut instead of an astronaut, it was really the start of my career. And now I would say, and I hope we can get into this a little bit more, I just am a scientist, whether it's cooking a recipe and trying to figure out, does it work better with these ingredients or those ingredients with my family, and experimenting on my family, or planting stuff in my backyard, and does it work better in this part of the yard? Everything in my life is pretty much an experiment, right? A controlled experiment where I'm trying to figure out the solution to a problem. And it's fun.
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. The next question, you kind of touched on this a little bit, Margot, in the mention of your lab, but can you speak to a little bit about mentorship and the importance of mentorship for personal and professional success, and how women in STEM can find mentors?
Sure, if you want me to start.
Yeah, so you can start.
I think that it's really, it's been a very important part of my career. And I want to emphasize how many great men have mentored me through my career. But what was really striking to me as I was coming up the ranks in earth science, which is geology is an old science, but plate tectonics is a young science. It's actually almost exactly as old as I am, right? And so in plate tectonics, there really weren't sort of many women role models. Going out to sea was a profession that men did. And so a lot of the mentors that I had that were female were peers, right? We linked arms together and we worked together to try and break through these barriers that we were encountering. And, you know, sometimes it was hard and some of us just didn't want to continue on in doing that. But, you know, it was really important to me to be able to have those people link arms with me, those women link arms with me and be able to say, this is important and this is something that we want to be able to do. So I had a lot of established men who were role models that really helped me. But in terms of the mentorship that I got from women, it was really my peers and my friends and all of us figuring it out together that I thought was important and powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. If you all want to elaborate, or we can go to the next question.
No, I was just going to say, I agree. I think in the different roles that I've been in, and I think each one of us have been in very unique career areas in our lives. And it is through not only mentorship, but sponsorship, which I think is also critical as well, and understanding the difference. You know, I had mentors who were just like, I'm sorry, what Margot said, who were peers. When I was coming up through medical school and during my training, because I'm a surgeon by training, and it was not easy and lonely because it was not a lot of women, not a lot of people that looked like me. And then transitioning into a business career, and especially when I ascended my last corporate role, I think I described this to you. I was a VP/GM for Merck, a German-held company. I said the Papa Merck in Germany, and I was running $100 million division there, which was a transformational type of opportunity because it was failing. And I was put into that position. And actually my family was here in St. Louis, and after I did the interview, 2 days later, they offered me the position, but I could not move because my family at the time, my husband, I had a 5-year-old at that time, was here. But I always tell people, when somebody wants you, they will make mountains move. And literally, I put a lot of mountains in the way when I accepted, you know, and prior to accepting the opportunity. It was really, they flew me out there. But going out there, not knowing anyone out there except one other colleague who was a woman who I worked with at a previous corporate entity. She was my mentor. She was a sponsor for me. And when I went out there, I went out there leading a marketing organization. And when they split the division into 2 divisions, she was my sponsor that says she's the one that can take over the other side of this division. So it's really, really key, you know, understanding how people come into your life. We are still good friends to this day. And I think for mentors, understanding, you know, I've had people say, oh, you know, can you be my mentor? And my question is, what do you want? What do you want from that relationship? I think you need to be very, very clear about what you want from a mentor and how do you want that relationship to be established and grow and develop. Because your needs are going to change, you know, over your course of your career. And then how do you give back? Because I think that's also important too. How are you giving back and reaching back? Because that's one of the things my parents taught me. You know, you always have to look back, and you always have to bring somebody along with you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I have to add to, you know, Margot and Cheryl's comments are just amazing is that it is a two-way street for mentoring, you know, and you will come across, you know, areas in your career where you may need a mentor for your writing, maybe how you present, how you sharpen your business skills. I mean, I can tell you, I can count more than 10 mentors for all the aspects of work that I've been moving in. So I think that's really important. And it's, you know, just this morning I met with a senior mentor of mine, and she was coming into my office to to seek mentoring for another aspect of her research. So, you know, it's building on relationships. How can we learn from each other? In this day and age, you know, the glass ceiling has been shattered with prominent leaders, women leaders now. And I think we can take this motivation to say, like, how can we all help each other?
Yes.
You know, you can't do it alone. We need teams. We need people to support. Sponsor is someone who can champion you, you know, someone who can advocate on your behalf, you know, because maybe you're new to this game, right? So I think it's really important to, if they're going to sponsor you, you know, it's important to reciprocate and say thank you, you know, and that's something that goes a very long way, because we know that this relationship has been established and there's more to move forward with it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing those wonderful perspectives. The next question, you spoke on this a little bit, Christina, so I'll stick with you. You talked a little bit about the breaking of the glass ceiling. And while there have been many strides made for women in a lot of careers, especially STEM, there are still barriers to be faced and challenges ahead. So can you share a little bit about how you've overcome some of the barriers in your career specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, really the importance of overcoming these barriers. A barrier is foreseen as something that you may not have the abilities, the strength to overcome, right? So that's where mentors, sponsors come in. This is where reading, educating yourself becomes really important. You know, say you attempt at that one challenge and you fail because you are going to have many failures. You know, it's often, you know, you hope to get that feedback because you want to understand, what did I do wrong? So you can learn from that. We learn from our failures. So that's what overcoming barriers is learning about our failures, seeking resources to overcome those failures, the mentors that are needed. How am I going to communicate this better, you know, verbally versus on paper? Really talk to, you know, your colleagues, your peers. They may be coming across the same challenge. So what did they learn? How were they successful?
Absolutely. And Cheryl and Margot, feel free to add.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I was just going to say, I think we all face challenges. You live life, you're going to face challenges. How do you get through it? When I took on this role at Merck, like I said, I came in from a marketing perspective, leading a marketing team. And every time I take on a new role, my first thing is understanding the team, making sure I have an opportunity to engage with them one-on-one, to understand not only their roles and their jobs, but what are their expectations? Because I look at myself as, if I am leading an organization, my job is to remove obstacles out of your way so you can do your job better. And as I used to tell my team, my expectation is that you are promoted in 3 to 5 years. You shouldn't be here. And if you are here, that means that I'm not helping you to move to the next level. So, you know, when I first got to this role, you know, it was a failing organization. Actually, I was expected to lose $2 million that year, moving forward and taking on this role. And one of the things I've always done, even now, going back to understanding the market, understanding the team that I have, and where we can create strategies and learn and how to do things differently. So, and involving them, because like I used to tell them, you know, I'm the one who makes a final decision, but you guys are involved in that decision. I don't know everything about this business. I don't know everything around the nuances around this whole opportunity. So it's really involving people and having them as stakeholders understand how to move forward. And long story short, it was a hard road, because I was upside down in my supply chain. I was upside down in my financial numbers, where, you know, we were paying our bills in 30 days and we wouldn't get paid for 60 to 90 days. We had to really institute new strategies and look at how do we grow our market differently. But in a year and a half, instead of losing 2 million, we brought in 4 million in profit. So with that, and I tell people, that wasn't me. That was an entire team that, you know, I had to put them together. We had to learn together. We had to work together, and we had to overcome challenges together. So I look at it as, you know, when you're faced with challenges, try to involve, like Christina said, try to involve as many people as you can to help you think through, how can I get through this challenge? Because you're not the first person who's encountered that. I had a challenge when I was training in medical school, where there was a guy came into the clinic, and I will never forget this. He was an older white gentleman. He looked at me and he said, "I don't want you treating me." And my attending is the one that stood up for me and said, "Oh, okay. Well, you go sit back out there in that waiting room." And he turned around and told me he will never be seen here. so you know that it's building, it's having that source, that liaison there, but also, you know, as you get more comfortable in your career, confidence plays that role too. Having confidence in what you're saying and what you're doing, and you're not going to know all the answers, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to stop because I can go on.
Well, just sort of following up with what Cheryl said, I think that, you know, it's a lifelong journey of trying to improve my own confidence. But as I get better at things, you know, and as I've gotten older and more confident, I've been more comfortable in a nice way pushing back. You know, why do you think I can't be a professor and also a mom with a baby at the same time? Why do you think I can't ride on a submarine just because I'm a woman? You know, and you know, that's for getting over those individual hurdles. That's been my solution. And I tried very hard not to ever say it in a mean way, but in a human way, right? And so now as I'm getting older and I'm in more of a management role, I try and flip that around. If I see somebody who's young and I can tell that they're struggling with, they'd really like to try and do this, but they haven't been able to articulate to me why they'd like to do it. Okay, you know, what potentially are they seeing that I'm pushing them away from something that they want to do, and how can I put myself in their shoes so that if they can get more comfortable and more confident leaning in and saying, you know, I really think that I have the ability to do this, even though I've never done it before, even though no person like me has ever done it before, I can do it. You know, we got to ask that question, the why can't. Why can't I do that? Why can't she do that? Why can't he do that? Right?
And might I say also, I think all of us have been in startups in some way or another. Startups really show you what you can and can't. I shouldn't say can't do. You can do anything that you put your mind to doing, but it really highlights what you need to learn. It really highlights who you need to connect with. Who do you need to outreach with? Who do you need to network with? Because it's very different from corporate, where you have all these great resources that you can rely on and all these great opportunities. In a true startup, you're trying to raise money, you're trying to prove out your product, you're trying to get a team in place, and you're trying to make it happen. So, you know, I think that those are all challenges that you've got to figure out how to overcome. And I think it makes you a better person as well as you're thinking through all of this stuff. That's why I think STEM is so important, because it teaches you how to think.
Absolutely. I thank you all for sharing that. We got this question quite a bit. So I'd like to see if you all could elaborate a little bit more on how young women entering STEM can build that confidence that you spoke about, as well as how they can, learn how to ask that why question, or, those questions to help them assert themselves, in their field.
Yeah, okay. I guess I'll start. For me, I wish that I'd had more people that I had been able to practice that question on. But now I have a lot of friends that if I'm trying to think about how I can address this, I will approach them and say, I'd like to run this by you. What do you think? And a lot of times we'll change my language. We find ways to make my language more neutral. I think that neutral language is really a key. It's why is a very reasonable question, right? But depending on the words that come after it, you can insult people, right? And so, what's neat about now, and I've seen that one of my former students is actually on this call. Hi, Jenny. Is that I can reach back to these young people that I've helped, or younger than me, that I've helped, and say, hey, what would you do about this? Or what would you do about that? And so it doesn't always have to go in that direction, that you practice those questions with somebody who's your supervisor or older or more experienced than you. I'm always so amazed by the ingenuity and humanity and wonderful qualities that I see in somebody who's 20 years old, who can help me be better at doing what it is that I need to do.
That's wonderful. And elaborating on that, and this is open to anyone. I just got this question via chat, and I was going to ask you all about it anyway. There are a lot of women and people of color and people who are entering STEM careers and careers in different fields, and they're highly capable, extremely talented, extremely qualified, but they still face that dreaded imposter syndrome and feeling like they're not meant to be there, they're not enough, even though they are. And so how do you deal with that in your own personal careers, and as well as for those that you mentor?
I can start with that. So yeah, that's a great question, imposter syndrome. And I think, we're seeing that because we see the success of others, and their success is has been repeated over and over again for maybe the same pattern, right? And so we find ourselves like, well, I want to be just like that, and copy paste, right? But I think we need to rethink this about what we're really aspiring is the success, right? We want the success of an idea. And I think if we uncouple ourselves from saying, I just want to be just like them, yes, you want to be the success of others. That's what you want, but you don't have to follow that same path. Okay, so really create a story for yourself and your success to get there. I think it's really hard nowadays, especially now when we're bombarded with social media and you see the success of others and you're like, oh, you're barely struggling to get by. But, in time, it will come with you, seek out the right help, plan accordingly, think really hard, and kind of going back to your earlier question of, how do you inspire young women, to succeed, like get that confidence? Well, have that important question and address it in a focused way. By doing so, you then create an impact, and then people will start to listen to you, right? You have now had a success for a question that you've addressed, and now you have a focus, and now you're brought to the front of like, well, look at her. She's now the expert. Look at what she found. And I think with those steps, if you do that over and over again and frame it in that way, you will achieve success. It's going to be hard, but you just have to stay the path. And so in that way, don't, uncouple yourself from trying to be like others. You will be like them with success, but do it in your own story.
Mm-hmm. And imposter syndrome is real. It is not something that is some term that's just made up and thrown around. And most women, we suffer from it more than men. And I have seen it in judging business plan competitions. And I will tell you, I've said this before in our smaller group meeting. Most men will show up and maybe have some of the I's dotted and some of the T's crossed, but they know how to spin something and will say some things that you're like, what? A woman will show up, have all of the I's dotted, T's crossed, and still don't have the confidence to really put forth that not just the effort, but it's putting forth the confidence and knowing, yes, I know what I know, and I know how to do what I'm telling you I know how to do. And that starts, I think, for many of us, I know I had it. you know, and I think we sometimes suffer with it at different points of our career. You know, when you're new to doing something, when something is new to you, sometimes you're like, I don't know so much about this, so I'm gonna fade back. I'm not gonna ask a lot of questions. And I did that early on in my corporate career because nobody in my family worked in a corporation. I didn't have an example of someone who could say, well, this is how you handle this situation. This is how you do this. I had to learn it, right? And I had to learn it in environments where I was the only one sitting there. So you become hesitant about, should I ask this question? Is this question stupid? Should I not say something? And I have come to realize in my career that, you know what, no question is stupid. That the question that you have, somebody else in that room probably has it as well. And so I always say, you know what, show up in these environments, show up, be present. Don't take that back seat. You sit at the table and you ask questions that if you don't understand something, ask the questions, but also do your research too to understand the topics and what's going on, right? And I also want to say, I think to build that confidence, you have to show up to network. As I tell people all the time, if you're not networking, you're not working. Okay, you need to network with individuals. I know it's hard to do it now in COVID, but you can still put together, let me have a coffee, a Zoom coffee with you. Can I connect with you in some sort of way? And most importantly, I think listen to people. People are more than willing to tell you their stories and talk to you. You have to be willing to listen. And I used to lead a sales force, and I used to tell them, if you're doing more talking than the customer, that's a problem. You're going to miss something. So those are all of my caveats for trying to, how do you get over that? And that's how you build your confidence, I think, as well at the same time.
Can I add one more thing, Sydney? And
Absolutely.
This is kind of a mission of mine. I think we also have to identify the inherent bias in the system. And I can give a really good example of this. At a university, a faculty member, depending on if they're research or teaching, right, is evaluated on three things. Usually they're evaluated on their research and teaching, and then they're evaluated on how many grants, how many dollars, how many things they bring into the university. And then finally, they're evaluated on service, right? So if you're a woman in a department where there's primarily men, service means being on committees. And so for you to be on committees so that women are well represented, you're on 4 committees to every 1 committee that a man is on. But that's the lowest ranked thing that you get credit for in terms of your time at the university. It's important to point that out to people and say, look, the system is penalizing me because you don't have enough of me in your system, and you have to spread me around more, but you don't give me any brownie points for that spread. So we have to also look at the system and say, this is wrong and it needs to change.
Systems
Absolutely.
change. Yeah.
This has been incredible. You have shared some true gems and spoke honestly and openly, and I really appreciate that. And I know our audience and our Skandalaris Center team does as well. So now we're going to move. So thank you again. And now we're going to move into our breakout session. So you heard Cheryl just tell you the importance of networking and listening and talking and, getting to know. This is your chance to do that now. So we'll have our breakout rooms will be led by members of the Skandalaris Center Expert on Call and in Residence Professionals team. We will be pairing up our panelists with members of our team. So we will have Margot Edwards. She's going to be paired up with Veronica Redmond, who is the Skandalaris Center Expert in Residence and a consultant and medical writer to companies large and small in the biotechnology field. We will have Christina paired with Shanae Chapman, who is a senior user experience designer at Smart Bear and the founder and CEO of Nerdy Diva. And then we will have Cheryl paired up with Abby Cohen, the co-founder and co-CEO of Sparrow, an award-winning digital health company dedicated to helping people breathe better. So just want to thank you all for coming today. Looking forward to these awesome breakout room conversations. Again, we invite you to attend our Idea Bounce on the 17th. We really encourage you to attend our iCore event on the 18th. That's a wonderful opportunity to, if you're working on a startup, take a look at it and really identify your opportunities. And then we invite you to our internship and career fair on the March 9th. So now we're going to move into the breakout rooms. Jessica Weldon on our team just sent a chat that lets you know that you can choose to join any breakout room that you want. We're not going to be in the main room anymore, so we encourage you all to join a breakout room. Feel free to move around, and thank you for joining us. And let me know just let us know in the chat, or feel free to speak if you're having trouble moving to a breakout room, if you need us to move you manually. Is everyone in the main room